Hello and welcome, everybody. It's Coach Action Jackson, and I'm here with another episode of Client Success Stories. And I'm joined here by Greg, who's the newest member to the Action Jackson Fitness Hall of Fame because he lost 17 pounds, 7.5% body fat. He added 4 pounds of lean mass, and he also took 6 inches off of his waist. The photos are incredible. Greg, thank you so much for being here. And why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks for having me, Coach. And yes, my name is Greg Mosley. I live in Louisville, Kentucky, and I am 43 years old. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to kind of COVID and the COVID-15, or as I had the COVID-45. So yeah, I mean, it's been an incredible journey working with you, and I've learned so much, as well as kind of adopted new philosophies and approaches to my life, my diet, and my workouts. So couldn't be happier.
Well, Greg, you're an overachiever. So, most people put on 15, you put on 45. Most people struggle to lose weight. You take off 7.5% body fat, just overachieving across the board.
Yes. Yes. Either overachieving or underachieving is both extremes.
So why don't we take it back and why don't you tell me, why did you get started on this journey? Why was this so important to you? Of course, obviously you put on the weight during COVID. So totally understand that. But what was the drive? Was it, something specific? Give us the reason why, you wanted to do this.
The main reason I wanted to do this was that I was starting to explore plastic surgery and those types of more invasive surgical options for weight loss. And I just had a hard conversation with myself and came to the conclusion that getting that type of procedure wasn't going to fix what was going on inside. And the fear of having lipo or tummy tuck or whatever that would have been, and then gaining it back, learning about the process of healing and how, the fat cells would be redistributed somewhere else. It all just kind of terrified me. And so I wanted to, again, hard conversation with myself about, have I done everything that I can to achieve what I was trying to achieve? And the answer to that was yes, but the sad reality is that it wasn't enough. I worked with you on Tonal exclusively for probably 2 years before I reached out to you. And the reason I reached out to you, I think, is that I actually hit my my 1,000,000 pound mark in terms of weight lifted. And you and I had a conversation, and it just felt like what I needed to get to that next step. And kind of what I said a moment ago about learning a new philosophy is even though the program was only 4 months long, I've changed inherent behaviors, and I've worked on my insides, my psyche, my brain, which when you work from the inside out, you're going to have those lasting effects. And I mean, I think I mentioned this to you. I took a week off, and not even a full week, but I just started to feel really antsy because I didn't like the way I felt after taking that long of a break, after being so committed for 4 months.
Wow. I really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that. That story reminds me a lot of Robin. Robin, who's one of our Hall of Famers as well. She lost 100 pounds in the program, and she had scheduled her, I think it was gastric bypass surgery. And obviously there's a lot of risks in any surgery. So her husband didn't want her to do it. I was like, I think we could help you. She said, I'll give you 1 month. And that turned into a full year of coaching together. And we helped her lose 100 pounds. But I think not a lot of people really think through or realize a lot of the risks and dangers of doing those types of procedures. And it's not always, everyone thinks the grass is greener on the other side. It's not always that green. So I also appreciate you having that self-awareness to have a hard conversation with yourself. How did you have that conversation? What was that like mentally, emotionally? How did you come to that place to say, you know what, I've tried, but it wasn't good enough, and I want to take another shot at this? How did you have that brutally honest conversation with yourself?
Well, I can't remember if you are the one that mentioned this to me or where I heard it, but your phrase a moment ago about the grass is green where on the other side, right? Well, I saw something recently that the grass is green where you water it, and I don't remember if that was you. It might have been, but it kind of just came down to as we get older, time speeds up, and I think that depression and obesity and, just kind of regret about not achieving things in life. It's something that everyone can relate to. But for me personally, I just kind of came to the realization that, I have a lot of things that I've wanted to achieve that have not gone away. And I would rather die trying than not try at all. And this meant physically, mentally, spiritually, and just, realizing that it's not a burden, it's not a hindrance, it's not a weight on my shoulders. It's like the key to my happiness and joy is just on the other side of whatever comfort zone we're in. And I've adopted a lot of small phrases because they're easy to remember, but like they help me, these mantras, to stay focused and realize that like the long-term effort, the gains will be far more fruitful and enjoyable if I'm committed to myself and working hard, as opposed to just sitting on that couch, dwelling on the anxiety of not doing anything. And also, we don't have the luxury of staying the same. I can either choose to be in a slightly better shape today or slightly less better shape today, provided it's not a rest day. And so I just realized that I want to continue to grow. I learned that less than 1% of people have abs in this world. So there are more millionaires in this world than there are people with abs. And that's because you can't just make them or buy them. You have to work for them. And so just kind of really changing my outlook and realizing that I am fortunate. I think you talked about like the value of our bodies and how, if I gave you $1 million, would you let me chop off your arm? And the answer to that is obviously not. But yet here we are eating garbage, not exercising, not taking care of our bodies. And so just realizing that when I take care of myself, I'm happier, I look better, I feel better. If my cup is overflowing, that's when I can share with other people. But until I've made sure that my cup is full and that I have taken care of myself, I'm not going to be able to be my best version of people for my husband, my mom who lives with me and I take care of, or my professional career, all of those things.
Wow. That might have been one of the best, like, 3-minute rants that we've ever had in all the client success stories. I don't say that very frequently, but that was incredible what you just shared in the last few minutes. There was normally I like to try to summarize and give a little bit of recap of what the person just shared. I can't even do it because there was so many great golden nuggets that you just shared. Getting outside your comfort zone, pushing yourself, growth, the adaptation response in the body, shifting your mindset was in there. Being your best for other people, how, the six pack, yes, it's a coveted trophy. It's amazing. Very few people have it, but also it's not just about that. It's about being better for other people. Holy cow. There's so much good stuff there. Did you always think like this, or is this a byproduct of the program? Like, how did you get to this mental space?
So I think that I did within other aspects of my life. I was just talking about this earlier, how I've kind of always found cheat codes or life hacks to get to where I want to be. I barely graduated high school and I'm now, in a very high level position in a tech company, and just not accepting limits and always trying to learn from every experience. And honestly, like learning to be kind to myself, because it is so easy for people to beat up on themselves or listen to the inner saboteur. I think you call yours like Little John, right? So like there's always that voice that is telling you you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're tired, I don't want to work out, I'd rather eat McDonald's. And I can choose to, make poor decisions, or I can choose to feel like I'm punishing myself by making a good decision, or I can say, yes, I can have McDonald's or sit on the couch, but I choose not to, because I know that the outcome when it's finished, meaning once that workout is done, or I wake up in the morning after not ordering Taco Bell through DoorDash, like I feel much better about that decision. And it's like, just, you've told me this, celebrating little wins, right? Like each of those small things. And if I scored 90 out of 100 on all the stuff I had to do today, I mean, I know so many people that would just focus on the 10 that they didn't get right as opposed to the 90 that they got right. So I kind of adopted a 90-10 rule. Whenever I'm starting to be hard on myself, I allow 10% of it in and then I push the rest out. And then I listen to the other voices so they can do it, and that you are doing it, and that you are succeeding. It's a lot of self-talk. But yeah, going back to your question, I'd say that I've been like that in a lot of other avenues of my life, but I have realized that those skills are available to me outside of those other facets of life. So that's been a big help for me.
That is so incredible because so many people, right, are very successful in one area of their life and they think they could build a big business or be an entrepreneur or they could be an executive or a CEO. And they're like, but they can't figure out their health or their fitness. And they think, I'm just not good at that. Or they put some limiting belief or some identity on it that prevents them from moving forward. And you're saying, well, I'm good over here, so why can't I be good over there? And then just sort of taking the small little action steps, building momentum on them, celebrating your successes and wins, and creating that identity, creating that person that you want to be. And that's a really important and also fantastic idea and a concept I think that more people need to adopt and really leverage in their life if they want to get the next level results, especially in their health and fitness, but certainly in any area.
Everything. Yeah. I mean, and to that point, like, I work in advertising and I work in sales and people are trusting me with their advertising budgets, their companies. And, you know, when it comes down to control, if I don't have control over my own body, then, you know, how can someone perceive me to have control over other facets? Now, that's a very superficial, shallow way of thinking of things, but first impressions matter. The message that is being sent, I think, is that if someone is able to take care of themselves physically, especially as we age, then that says a lot about their character, both externally and internally.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I heard an interesting quote the other day from Ryan Holiday. He was doing an interview and he said, you know, there's this saying that don't judge a book by its cover. He goes, but the cover's there meant to be judged, right? That's what you put the cover out for. So if you don't think about the cover, you're not thinking about holistically everything that goes into selling a book. And I mean, it's the same thing. It's the way we carry ourselves, because it's not just about how you necessarily look or what your body looks like, et cetera. It's about how you feel about that matters, I think, more importantly than anything else. So if you don't feel great about where you're at, if you don't have energy and confidence and all those things, then it doesn't matter if you have a six pack or if you're at 30% body fat. Like, you're not going to come across, you're not going to convey, and other people aren't going to receive you in the way that you want to show up. So 100%, I think you're right on the money there. And that point you made about beating yourself up is so important, because so many people, it's crazy too, because what happens is people will beat themselves up for not doing these unrealistic expectations that they set for themselves, right? So trying to achieve this perfection that's impossible. And then when they fall short, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to treat myself by having McDonald's or doing this or doing that. But ironically, the thing that's treating them is the thing that ends up sabotaging them. And then they beat themselves up, and then they end up falling into the same behavior over and over again. That's the same behavior that they're beating themselves up for. So meaning, if you beat yourself up for gaining weight or not following your diet, the irony is that by beating yourself up, you end up doing that more often. You fall off more frequently. You follow your diet less frequently. Whereas if you just celebrated your wins and said, you know what, I did fall off, but for the 3 or 4 days before that, I was really dialed in. What was it about those 3 or 4 days that I did differently? How could I replicate that? How could I get more of those days? That would be the answer that they'd want to look for. So, wow, that's another incredible point. You're just hitting home runs here.
Overachiever.
Yes, absolutely. This is an overachieving interview. So what other obstacles, did you face along the way, and how, potentially did you overcome those so people could kind of learn from maybe some of your mistakes?
I would say that the biggest obstacle was the diet portion and tracking the macros. I think that's, relatively understandable, considering that is something new to me. I will say that I love tracking the workouts, the measurements, the progress those ways. And in the beginning, I was really great about tracking diet. But I really adopted intermittent fasting like extremely well, because one thing I learned about myself is I like to eat late. Like, I like to eat at night. And so what I did is I just stopped eating during the day. so that I could save all, like I would save my 8 hour window, but I wouldn't start that 8 hour window until 2:30 or 3:30 in the afternoon, which really worked for me because that meant that I can eat more in the evening, right? Because I think you told me we're not changing how much you eat, we're just changing when you eat it. And like energy wise, focus wise, I've learned that if I eat a big lunch, I'm tired, I want to take a nap, I'm getting that whole carb, whatever they call it, meltdown. But if I don't, I have sustained energy throughout the whole day. My blood sugar doesn't crash. And if I do eat lunch, now it's like today I had lunch with the client, and they well, they had some health issues. I'll just say that, and they chose to order cheeseburger and French fries, and I chose to order like a salad with grilled chicken on it. And granted, the burger sounded great, but again, it goes back to the decision. I could order the cheeseburger. I could if that's what I wanted, but would I feel good mentally, physically afterwards? And I already knew the answer to that. I've gone down that path so many times, like, no. And so because of that, I've had great energy throughout the day. I celebrated the positive decision, right? And it's kind of like one workout, one meal, one day at a time. And that's actually one of the things I've learned throughout this whole process too, is that there are these universal themes that you have that RuPaul has, because I watch RuPaul's Drag Race all the time. AA, NA, right? Like a lot of these, there are these universal themes, and it was really fascinating to see how those themes translate to all different walks of life and lifestyles.
Absolutely. It's incredible because a lot of people see ordering the cheeseburger and fries, or excuse me, ordering the salad over that as like, oh, this is a sacrifice. Oh man, that must be so hard. How can you do that? The cheeseburger and fries look so good. And it's like, yes, the cheeseburger and fries, immediately you take a bite, you're like, this is amazing. But that's very short lived, and that fades very quickly. And what remains is the brain fog, the fatigue, the lack of energy, the shame, the guilt, all of those things that go along with it then, and then maybe not doing as well with your work, maybe not then working out, feeling bad about yourself, whatever it is, that remains afterwards. And so the burger and fries isn't just $15. The burger and fries is $15 plus all the negative consequences of that come along with it. And it doesn't mean you never have the burger and fries. It just means you want to be much more selective about when you do, because of the downstream consequences for your future self. And having the salad or the healthier meal there is like, yes, it's a little bit of a short-term trade-off, but long-term, man, is this paying me dividends, because energy, the confidence, I can get my work done. I'm clear, I'm focused, I'm dialed in. I don't have any shame, guilt, or anything. So when you look at it in entirety, it's not a sacrifice at all. It's like, it just is obvious it's the better decision. It's kind of like when you look at compound investing or something. It's like, yeah, you have to spend the money every month to put to your savings account or your investment portfolio, but like, it makes so much sense. The math just adds up. You want to get that compounding return. So I think if people change the way they thought about it and the language they use when they're referring to it, they could have a much better and different outcome. And I appreciate you pointing that out. Again, you're just spitting fire today. So were there any other obstacles, or like, what are some things that you think people out there should know, learn about your journey? Because again, it's not all sunshine and rainbows all the time. I know people join these interviews, they do them, and we talk about the amazing successes, but it's not easy for people. There are obstacles, there are struggles that people go through.
I would say the obstacles would definitely be like traveling and participating in recreational activities, alcohol as an example.
Great. How did you manage those things?
I try to just not go out, period, because I tend to, as we've already, I'm an overachiever. So having 2 drinks just doesn't have any appeal to me. I'd rather have more. So I just actually mostly stopped drinking during the program. Now, I am fortunate that I only drink like premium tequila. And so when I did drink, it was tequila and soda, or it was just tequila neat. So, very low sugar, very low carbs. And so obviously My favorite place is Taco Bell, if I'm being honest. So I mean, I would still get the Taco Bell after I drank, and I would just enjoy it, and I wouldn't be upset at myself because I already knew it was going to happen. It was already planned. And what that meant was that I was walking the dogs the next day, or being extra strict the next few days. So I would say that, like, going back to the whole progress over perfection, it's like, if you do go out, if you do drink more than you should and go out and eat afterwards, that's okay, because that joy you'll be able to hopefully hold on to and say, look, I had so much fun over the weekend that, like, I owe it to myself to fast these next few days, to really make sure that I'm restabilizing and I'm not continuing to go down that path, because it's a slippery slope. And these days I get asked a lot, how am I doing all of these things at once, whether like working out, taking care of my mom, working, being a husband, taking care of my dogs, all these things at once. And I've come to the conclusion that it's a very easy answer, and it's two words, and it's with joy. There are so many people that do not have the opportunity, the resources, the family, the support network that I have. And so to be thankful of that and understanding of that, and then to just put it back out in the world. I think that's part of the reason I wanted to do this, was just to share with other people how they can also tap into their inner selves and realize that that joy is available to them as soon as they allow themselves to break out of whatever mental block or bad habits that they've acquired over the years.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Greg. It's making me emotional thinking about that, because so many people think when they want to get healthy or get fit or go on a journey like this, it's going to be extremely difficult. It's going to be restriction, no joy, no fun, no nothing. And what you're telling me is that, maybe I didn't go out as much as I used to. I didn't drink as much as I used to, of course, because I'm trying to be healthier and more fit. But I did still do those things occasionally. And when I did them, I enjoyed them. And I didn't set myself up for failure by saying, I'm going to go out and not have a single cocktail, and I'm certainly not going to go to Taco Bell afterwards. You still lived your life, you still enjoyed it, and you set yourself up for success, and then said, okay, but now I'm going to make a little bit of a compromise with myself, and maybe I'm going to go and do a little extra cardio today, or I'm going to really tighten it up for the next few days or whatever. And then to share that gift you just threw out there, which was with joy. There's a great book called Effortless, and the author, I think his name's Greg McEwen or Greg McCowan, and he says the two biggest things I take away from that book is there's two questions to ask yourself in any situation. How can I make this easy? And the second one is, how can I make this more fun? Or, to use your phrase, with joy. And I think that's a really underrated question to ask yourself. If I'm going to go on a workout, if I'm going to work out, how can I do it with joy, right? There's people out there who can't work out. They're returning from, whether it's overseas or they were born a certain way or whatever, and they simply cannot work out. We had one client who went through our program. He ended up losing 27 pounds, but he was born with a genetic thing, no use of his legs, literally had no use of his legs. And I remember meeting up with him for coffee at one point and just thinking to myself, gosh, I am so fortunate, and holy cow, and I'm sitting here complaining about being tired or being sore or whatever, and to change your perspective and to do things with joy, or to ask yourself, how could I create a little joy in this? What an incredible question to ask, and what a powerful mindset shift that could be. How have you been able to make that shift? How have you been able to do things with joy and really shift your mindset perspective like that?
It's a constant reminder, and it's a constant redirect, and it's one of those things that ebbs and flows, where certain days, 99 out of 100 thoughts in my head may be positive, and there's that one that's easy to silence, and other days it may not be that way. And, always trying to remember that there are two voices available to me. I can listen to my inner champion, or I can listen to my inner saboteur. And which one am I going to be loudest? And reminding myself of that anytime I start to go down a path of negativity is extremely helpful. Does it work every time? No. And nor should because we have to experience a range of emotion. But the only way that someone can change a behavior is through consistent training and commitment. And it's the same thing with like training a pet, right? Like they don't speak our language. So we have to be able to use consistent behavior and interaction to be able to change or teach new behaviors. And it's no different for ourselves.
That sums it up really well. I could not say it better myself, Greg. That is fantastic. It is that constant reframe, because people will say, oh, I have this voice in my head, or I ruminate, or I think these bad thoughts. And it's like,
stop doing that.
Yeah. Like every time you catch yourself thinking that thought, think a different thought. I remember when I was trying to get this business going, I was dead broke, deathly broke, but I would never like use that language. And what I would do is I ended up, my wife now, she was my girlfriend at the time. She thought I was crazy. I took $100 bills. Like I took out whatever money I had in my bank account and I put these $100 bills all over the house. So every time I saw those, I could just reframe that money's out there. It's coming to me. I attract money and I'm not broke. And it sounds crazy, but like slow but steady, I started to really shift my mindset and things started to come into my life. Good things started to come in. Clients started, joining. And all of a sudden it started to really build momentum in a more positive direction. And you could do that with whether it's your money, your weight, negative thinking, any of these things. But it is, to your point, it is a constant reframe in your head. And I mean, even to this day, like people think I'm Mr. Positive. Not always. There's many times that I feel down. There's many times I feel a little depressed. This last week, I was feeling a little bit down. I'm feeling a heck of a lot better now that I'm talking to you, if I'm being honest. But I was feeling a little down this week. And that's okay. It's okay to feel down sometimes and not always be Mr. Positive, but also recognizing that, reframing. And then all of a sudden, you're going to be able to shift yourself in that more positive direction. So, wow, that's incredible. And when you can do that, I'm sure, as you know, you're going to really shift your identity. And once you shift your identity, wow, things really become a lot easier. So is there any last things that you'd like to share for people out there who might be listening from home and saying, man, this Greg guy's amazing, but I'm sitting here struggling and I don't know if I could make the change.
Well, the one thing that I will say that I notice is that, your clients, you have a lot of clients that have tremendous results, fantastic reviews. But the reason I really wanted to share my story was that I came into this with a large gut and a lot of excess weight around my midsection. And so I had a much, I think, a higher hill to climb than some other people do. A lot of them maybe want to be putting on weight or they just have a little bit to lose, but I felt like I had more. And so by sharing my story, my hope is that other people that are considering working with you realize that the program absolutely does work and that commitment to yourself and that kindness is what's going to make you successful because, it's easy to buy a piece of gym equipment or pay you to be my coach and then not do the work. But at the end of the day, I'm the only one losing out on that. And what I liked about working with you is it was another layer of accountability. Like, even though I didn't do the weekly check-in videos as often as I should have or would have liked to, the reason for that was because maybe a couple days ago I had Taco Bell, I went out drinking, and I didn't want to get on that scale on Friday. That level of accountability helped me a lot. And, I've only known you personally for the last 5 months, but I've known you virtually in my tonal for the last 2 years. And so what I would say is that, this entire program and process has been enlightening and life-changing. And my plan is to just continue and to build off of it because I have some very large, ambitious goals. And I hope I achieve them. I believe I will achieve them. But regardless, my energy, my effort, and my attitude are what's most important. And so just realizing that, you can be your biggest problem, but you could also be the key to your solution. And the key to that is your attitude and your outlook. Stop making fucking excuses, excuse my language, because you can do it.
Thank you for sharing that message, Greg. That is a wonderful message, and I know somebody out there needs to hear it. And regardless of what you set your mind to, I know you're going to achieve really big things because, to your point, your attitude, your mindset, and all of that stuff is rock solid. You've got the keys to success, and now it's just about going out there and continuing to execute. And you've already done a fantastic job. And I want to make sure I acknowledge you. I can't thank you enough for trusting me, for investing in yourself, for putting so much effort and energy into the program, for crushing it, knocking it out of the park, and for just showing up here today and sharing your story and being vulnerable and open and honest. I'm so proud of you. I really am. And this is one of my favorite interviews. It really is. You've just communicated so well, so many ideas, so many things, so many wonderful, incredible lessons. And I just can't thank you enough. So I really appreciate you, Greg. It's been an honor and a privilege to work with you and be even a small part of your journey. You've done an amazing, incredible job. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. And, this interview is just a small token of my reciprocity of how you've changed my life. So thank you.
Well, the feelings are mutual, Greg. We appreciate each other. And of course, we appreciate everybody at home who's listening. So remember, action is the difference between dreaming and succeeding. So take action today and make your dreams a reality, just like Greg.